based, but will have quite a lot of offices. Ulrika is the managing director and head of sustainable responsible investment. Prior to joining ISS, she managed a firm some of you might know, Ethics, based in Stockholm. And she's been advising institutional investors since 1999, right? She also knows a bit of Hebrew, so be careful of what you say, right? Yeah. Yeah, Rakitzat. Peter Webster is the Director of International Affairs at Vigeo Eiris. He was previously the founder, I think, right, of Eiris, which is based in the UK. They recently merged with Vigeo, and he's been working on SRI since 1983. So you really have a perspective on that. So Ulrika, let's start with you. And you've prepared some slides that will show us what the market is and the different methods that have been used to do some SRI. So can we have Ulrika's presentation, please? Oh, yeah, that's the one. And let's see if it works. No, it doesn't. Okay, where's Ulrika's slides? Okay, so we don't have slides, so you'll need to do without. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's Israel. We improvise all the time, so it's good.
That's okay. Okay, so shalom. השם שלי אולריקה. אני מדברת עברית קצת. So I stopped there with my Hebrew.
Yeah.
But I just want to extend a thank you to Momo, Tammy, and the team of Maala for arranging this conference. This is a great opportunity to be here. I had my first visit to Israel back in '88, and since then I've been coming here, many times, and I've always been wanting a business connection with Israel. So I'm really happy for this. Okay, I have some slides. Basically, both, as Momo said, both Peter and I have been in this industry helping institutional investors around the world to develop and implement policies for sustainable, responsible investment. And I just wanted to show you a few numbers. Well, that's about our firm, but I want to go to the next slide, actually. And these are European statistics. And just to a bit of setting the scene for this SRI industry. As you can see from around the world, going back a few years, the market for sustainable and responsible investment is growing extensively. And there are trillions and trillions of assets under management with different types of strategies and investment beliefs and criteria. And the next slide shows you a bit of a summary of these different strategies. And as you can see on the top strategy, it says negative exclusionary screening. This is a values-based strategy that quite a few investors around the world apply for all kinds of different reasons. And the interesting thing with the whole market for sustainable investing is that at the bottom of the slide, you see sustainability-themed investing, impact community investing. Now, both of those strategies, with the latest statistics, are showing the greatest growth. For all kinds of reasons. Chris gave a fantastic overview of the expectations and what we see around the world. And so we see that many investors around the world are now getting more in-depth into their investments, understanding different themes, different regions, different aspects, and they are integrating environmental, social issues more from a holistic perspective, which makes very good business sense. Now, what I also want to highlight in this context of sustainable investing is that this market is a bit of a jungle. It's a bit of a balagan, actually.
Well done. Well done.
Because it's not always easy for companies in Israel or elsewhere to understand where investors are coming from. They ask a number of different questions, they have different motivations, different objectives, and sometimes it is quite confusing.
Yeah.
But what we can say about the situation with this sort of jungle picture is that there's lots of growth, lots of diversity, but not always easy to find the way. So my recommendation to all Israeli companies and stakeholders and to investors is to focus on dialogue. Dialogue and meeting in person. This is crucial.
And we're good at that. Israelis are very good at meeting in person. So that's a very good advice. And Peter, that's your cue. I mean, having been in this industry for 3 decades, even more than that, where are we heading? I mean, what are the current trends in terms of SRI?
So, let me explain a little bit where I'm coming from, but also echo Ulrika's thanks to everybody for the very warm welcome we've all received here in Israel. So that's been a great experience. Eiris was originally a collaborative venture by a group of different asset owners, churches and charities, who had their own concerns about investments and thought it was better to come together and make an organization rather than do their own thing. Vigeo, on the other hand, was created by a set of largely French banks, insurance companies, trade unions, and other actors who wanted to see an organization such as Vigeo or Eiris created 10, 15 years ago. So between the two, we have a group of shareholders in this venture who are truly multi-stakeholder. And you might ask, what do these people all have in common with each other? And I think what they have in common is what we're, in a way, here today to celebrate. They have a strong belief in the importance of corporate responsibility as a concept. They see lots of values in it, but they also believe in it sort of as a duty as well as something that can add value. And that has really brought that coalition together. And what do we do as a result of that? Well, we look at companies in their different sectors. We have 40 different sectors. We identify all the things that you may be doing as companies, 38 different areas. And then we break that down per sector into something like 25 issues to ask for each sector. But it's not just a philosophical question. We also ask for each sector, for each company, exactly what are the chances that there are legal or human capital or operational or reputational risks because of that factor, so that we can focus our research on those things that are really material. So you asked about the investors. The importance of investors, I guess, over the last 10 years has grown hugely. So, I mean, we provide services to about 300 globally, but the PRI is perhaps the best example of investors getting together. There are 1,500 signatories now to the PRI over the last 10 years.
PRI is the Principles for Responsible Investment by the UN, not everybody
UN backed, yep. And it's built up a list of 1,000 asset managers, 300 asset owners, 200 service providers who are committed to a series of principles. Now, I guess the question is, what is their motivation? What gets them away from their spreadsheets and their screens in order to think about some of these issues? And basically, it's large-scale value destruction on the one hand, or huge opportunities on the other, seismic shifts in the global economy, or threats to their own license to operate, as they do at present. Those are the kind of things that get them away from the screens to talk about these issues. So when they hear that climate change may destroy 20% of global GDP if we don't take action, or that $1 trillion is being spent in bribes, perhaps damaging the economy $2.5 trillion every year, or that conflict, for example, in the Middle East across a whole series of countries may have cost $12 trillion between 1991 and 2010 alone, they look at those things and they say, there may be something we need to do about these. What can we do to reflect those huge flows of money in one direction or other in planning our own strategies for sustainable development in future? And what they've settled on, the big themes that you were asking for, is to say, well, the way the market operates at the moment doesn't always reflect these factors. What can we do about it? Firstly, they've decided to engage with companies directly on some of these issues, and PRI helps them with that. Secondly, they've decided to do the job themselves. They think the market should do generally, so to look for how to integrate these factors in their own assessments of companies. Thirdly, they've decided to push companies to disclose more information to make all this much more possible. And finally, they've decided to engage with policymakers a lot more. So the Paris conference was a good example, but it's a general shift of investors thinking there are fewer boundaries here. We will need to engage with policymakers if we're going to ensure an environment in which we can make sustainable wealth long term.
And that's, I think, a question for both of you. There's, you know, Israeli corporations often say we do not get many questions about relating to SRI. And I think worldwide, companies are saying, corporations are saying, that's another burden. That's another kind of form that we need to fill out, et cetera, et cetera. So what are the interesting opportunities here in terms of SRI? I mean, are there any new line of investments? Am I going to get rich if I'll invest in SRI? I mean, I think that's the question that interests everyone around here. So are there any interesting areas to invest in terms of SRI?
I think the whole area or the strategy that I mentioned, impact investing, which I mean the term was initiated by the Rockefeller Foundation a few years back, and really impact investing has its origin in investing with an intention to fix a problem, do good, poverty, water, energy, etc. And then as a secondary motive is to have a financial return. However, what is quite interesting with this strategy and sort of the terminology around it, in these days when we have so many global challenges and that we see that companies and investors can work together to provide solutions, I think that impact investing is becoming a much more sort of overall strategy. And as an example, the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, with more than $4.4 trillion under management, has now set sort of a group level strategy to work with impact investing. And of course, when you see the Rockefeller Foundation on the one hand and a BlackRock on the other hand, all working.
And Ulrika, can you give us a quick story on to understand what impact investing is? I mean, a project or a company?
It can be a project or a company. And I've already this morning met a few representatives that have some real interesting impact.
Oh, fantastic. So money is going to flow to Israel in that sense and be invested in it according to impact.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Peter, what are the opportunities that you're seeing? Yeah, absolutely. We'll help you carry the bags of money over. Just cool. Okay?
So I guess maybe the big thing at the moment is the focus on the Sustainable Development Goals, which have two sorts of significance. I mean, one is they identify a whole series of opportunities for infrastructure, health, low carbon economy going forward, and so forth. And investors, we're certainly finding clients approaching us wanting help with identifying which companies are going to be in those industries, how can they structure products around going with that. But the SDGs also contain a lot of business responsibility requirements, the role of women in the economy, bribery, many other things as well. So that's not so much an opportunity, but a further responsibility that companies need to attend to.
So I think that what you've basically said is that we as I don't remember if I said it at the beginning, we don't have a very thriving SRI community here in Israel. So in a way, it would be very interesting if sort of international investors would help to kind of build the scene, so to speak. And I think your clear message for both of you that what you've said, first of all, more transparency, more dialogue in terms of Israeli companies. And I think we absolutely embrace your invitation to meet in person and discuss those kind of things. We may lack in, I would say, formal transparency in terms of corporate social responsibility reports and such, but we do know everything that goes around usually in Israel, so that's a great way to understand things beyond the written word. And the second thing is, and that goes back to what you said, Peter, the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN is definitely something that if you look at them, I mean, take water, take energy, take food, we're discussing one of the panels, I think, construction, in all those areas, we can find interesting sustainable innovation work in Israel. The question is there a sort of a flow of money coming in to help kind of leverage those opportunities. So with that, I will thank you very much for coming here today. We had a previous session on SRI. We'll have another one at the end. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Thank you.